Also, Steve, it's been a good 15 minutes now since your pre-podcast biscuit. Has the biscuit worn off? Do we need another pre-podcast biscuit?
I think I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a risky move.
It says a lot about the professionalism of this podcast that our preparation simply extends as far as eating a biscuit and nothing else. Hello and welcome to the Jackcast, the Swansea City podcast. I am Guto and with me as usual we have Steve Carroll and Matt Barocco. Evening, boys.
Evening.
For those of you who were, well, just to let you in on a secret, we've had the most chaotic of preparations for this podcast. We didn't have a presenter lined up, nothing really prepared, had to flip a coin because nobody wanted to present. And then when we actually did start doing a podcast, nobody remembered to press record. So that bodes well for this podcast. Thankfully, we've got some very cheery things to discuss. So this should go very smoothly. And the main news this week, without a shadow of a doubt, boys, was the Swans beating table toppers Norwich City by 2-0. I'll start off with you, Matt, with this discussion because you, like me, we predicted last week a Swans win in this fixture. I was quite confident going into this match. Were you as confident in the run-up to match as you were on the podcast when we recorded it last week?
I was so nervous. It felt like the playoff semis against Brentford a few months back. So it was really kind of a really nervy day. It did kind of have everything building around that evening kickoff. Your day was structured around that, wasn't it? Which is quite weird for a mid-season fixture, but it did have that feel, didn't it, of the impact it could have on the season. I said in the podcast last week, I was more nervy of Brentford's attack than Norwich's, because I feel like Brentford are the best team in the division. They certainly going forward, they're frightening the prospects they have, the chance to score every time they go forward because they just have so much threat. Now, it's a little bit more focused and refined with Norwich, which gives you a bit more of a chance to kind of isolate certain players, something we did extremely well. I thought Timo Pukki was very quiet for the game. We really starved him of any of the ball to cause us trouble. And so it's hard to say I was confident because of the nerves leading up to it, but at the same time, it was knowing that we had to do what we could do. We needed to approach the game more positively than perhaps we did against Brentford, and deal with our own stuff. And then we could beat Norwich. I knew we could beat Norwich, and we discussed it last week. So I'm just so happy that we showed on national TV what we can be about, because that was a stellar performance.
And I think, in the run-up to the game, I was thinking Norwich, they've drawn their previous two league games 0-0. I watched them against Millwall, and I thought they looked pretty toothless up front. They were badly missing Emi Buendia. I saw their record without Buendia was kind of 1 win in 15, basically, which is quite staggering. And I just got the feeling that this was a good time to play against Norwich, as good a time as any, really, to play against a team of Norwich's quality. And I don't know about you, but it was as if something kind of set in with the Swans in the first 5 minutes, that they quickly realised this was a good time to play Norwich. And whereas against Brentford, I think the opposition came out really, really quickly, passing the ball around, putting us under pressure early on, and that kind of set the tone and put us on the back foot throughout the match. On this occasion, Norwich didn't really click. They weren't particularly good in possession in those opening stages. They looked a bit unsure of themselves. And I think, I don't know about you, but for me, it just looked like the Swans kind of decided, do you know what, this is there to be won. And they just started playing on the front foot, playing positively, passing it around. And that set the tone for the remainder of the match.
It did seem like that, didn't it? I mean, obviously, I didn't predict a win like you two last week, and I'm more than happy to be proved wrong, of course. But I think obviously my fear was that we would be negative like the Brentford game, but as you say, it wasn't really like that. We didn't really go gung-ho or anything, but we approached it quite well. We were positive when we had the opportunity, and then when the opposition had the ball, we were difficult to break down. So, yeah, I think we probably did gain from confidence. I mean, I wasn't hugely impressed with Norwich. As you say, I think they really did miss Buendia. I thought Cantwell was by far the most dangerous player that they had, but to be fair, when we got our chances, we did look threatening, and obviously we scored at the perfect time, really, didn't we, just before the break?
Matt, did we deserve the win and to go ahead at that stage? And I mean, it summed up the night, really, didn't it? That goal came from a mistake from Tim Krul, who is one of the best goalkeepers in this division. But on this night, of course, a relatively routine cross. He didn't collect it, and the rest is history. And of course, the Swans took the lead just before half time. Matt, do you think we deserved that goal at that time? And, it came from it. Well, I guess it said a lot about the night and the way things were going, that it came from a mistake from Tim Krul, one of the best keepers in the division. But on this occasion, he couldn't deal with a routine cross, dropped it, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I think Daniel Farke said, didn't he, in his post-match comments, that these sorts of games can be decided by such fine margins and these small details, which is true, to be fair, because on another day he catches that corner and the danger's gone. But no, I think we deserved it. I think we were asking the right questions. Yeah, Norwich weren't without threat themselves. They did when they created the space in midfield for Campbell. It's an odd one. I was saying to Steve and some other guys on Friday night, actually, that Campbell, he's very much, for me, he's quite a luxury up there in that when he gets the ball, he can make things happen. He can cut open your defence and create. And as Steve said, he's a massive danger for our defence. But also, when we had the ball, he seemed to be quite a bit of a passenger. He didn't do a lot of tracking. He reminded me quite a bit of a Selena or a Stephen Dorby type, where you want him on the ball in the final third. But outside of that, he didn't seem to fancy doing a lot of running or a lot of support work for his teammates, which, may be tactical. But it did allow us to have a little bit more of a breather space there when we did get the ball. The game was fairly even, I think. Well, it looked simple, and it probably I'm overplaying this a bit, but the goal from A reminded me a lot of his first goal for us against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, whereas everyone in the box was panicking. He was the man to keep a cool head and make sure it was slotted away nicely into the corner. So it did set the tone, as you say. Tim Krul, it did come from a chance, the corner, because it was a goal-bound shot from Hourahan that was blocked out by Max Aaron. So we weren't without chances. We certainly were creating, and they were too. I was just happy that we took the lead in a close game, and I think from there on, really speaking, were we under that much threat? I don't think so.
No, absolutely not. And Steve, when we made it 2-0, it really felt comfortable then. And let's just talk about Conor Hourahan. 3 goals in 3 league games. I think we all expected him to be a brilliant signing, a real game changer. But did we really expect this from him?
But you can never expect 3 goals in 3 games from a new signing, even if it's from a striker, really. So, yeah, it really is proven to be a game changer, isn't it, at the moment? And obviously it's the fact that he's different to what we've already got. I mean, I don't think anybody else in our side would have scored a goal like that on Friday. I mean, and you look at the goal that was scored by him at Rotherham as well, and he's just making such a difference for us, isn't he? And obviously the Brentford goal from a set piece, he's going to be huge. I think there's a genuine case for saying that in January, no club made a better signing than us when it came to bringing him in. So, yeah, it's a huge signing, isn't it? And it's we're reaping the rewards already, and long may it continue, really, because yeah, he could really be the difference between us winning promotion or not. I think it is that much of a key signing.
And it was a very complete performance after that. 2-0 up, we just don't concede those kind of leads. And kept a clean sheet, kept Norwich quiet. Conor Hourihane, Matt, got the Man of the Match award from Sky, but I thought any number of players could have had it. I mean, who were the ones who stood out for you in this fantastic team performance?
We say it time and time again, don't we? But the centre-back duo in particularly of Gehi and Bennett, and there's always another, whether it be Norton or Cabango. Norton possibly had one of his best games in a Swan shirt, considering, I think in context, considering he comes from that stupid red card he received a week or so ago, and how much pressure that would have put on him in such a big game to be given the confidence or given the faith of the manager when it was probably expected that Cabango would play. He played fantastically well. In context, personally, Bennett and Gehi could lead me into any battle because I just know absolutely the safest pair of defenders in this division, and just phenomenal talents, the pair of them, and so different but so complementary as well. Gehi is a very obviously he's built like an ox, but he's got a very good future in the game as well as a footballing defender. Bennett is a lot more old school, and he does the dirty things so brilliantly, and he's happy to throw his body in the line and do the ugly things well. So I love them too. And small mention as well for Jordan Morris, who came on late on in the game and should have had a penalty. So
God alive, yeah.
We
often talk about bad refereeing decisions, but I really have no idea what the referee thought he saw in that instant, because I could not think of a more blatant penalty this season. I really can't.
No, it was clear as day that he was he was fouled in the box. But I like him, and I like the fact we'll talk about the Championship as a division in a little bit. But I like the fact that he looks like a ready-made option off the bench. He's unfortunate in that our form means he's not been thrust straight into the action. And he's had to make do with minutes here and there. But when he has come on the pitch, he's looked a danger, he's looked lively, he's looked a threat. You don't always get that when you come off the bench and you have to get up to speed with a game with only 10 minutes left. He looks like a real option from the bench, which is important when you've got so many games in a short space of time.
And Steve, same question for you, really. Who stood out for you? Who are the stars of the show?
Guay springs to mind again. He's just absolute colossal defender for us, really. Hopefully he'll go up and he'll be here next year, because I think that would be brilliant for everybody if he was. Thought Jay Fulton was really good again. Sort of does the hard yards, should we say. But to be fair, it'd be hard to pick anyone out who didn't play well. I thought everybody contributed, really, even if they didn't necessarily provide. Let's use like Jamal Lowe, for example, who didn't really get much of a chance in front of goal, but the effort and everything was there from everybody, wasn't it? So I think everyone deserves a pat on the back. It was a great team performance, and as you said, after the second win-in, you just never feel that this team is going to let a lead like that slip. It's quite rare, really, that you feel so comfortable watching the Swans see out a lead. So they deserve huge compliments for that.
Absolutely, I'm glad you named a couple of those players there. I thought Bennett was a machine at the back, really. Norton is a player who made a real statement, I feel, because he was sent off against Brentford in a really silly way, 2 very stupid yellow cards, and he clearly cracked under the pressure. But he was thrown back in on Friday night against a former club, against the top team in the league. And he didn't put a foot wrong. He was absolutely superb. Another player who I think has really, really stood up recently, and his form has just been fantastic, is Matt Grimes for me. It's often said that he kind of benefits from kind of competition, and people said that he improved after being dropped earlier on in the season. I mean, there may be I don't know how true that is, but it definitely seems as though his game is up since Conor Hourihane came on the stage. And I just think he does so much simple work very, very well for Swansea. I thought he was fantastic as well. But like you've both said, I mean, everybody was just outstanding, and it was an absolutely brilliant night. And it's a night that, it changes the situation at the top of the table quite significantly, boys, because we've dragged basically Norwich back into play now, and you know, Steve, how do you see the situation at the top of the table at the moment, and where do we rank in terms of kind of favourites to finish in those top two?
I do think it's starting to look like 2 from 3, but I don't think it is quite that clear cut at this stage. I would say Norwich and Brentford probably are the 2 favourites. Then you'd probably say we're starting to become the 3rd favourite. I mean, you would have said the likes of Watford were probably more favourable than us at one time, but obviously there is starting to become a little bit of a gap there. I think Reading, similar to us, and a little bit of the underdogs, obviously made a great start, and they're still in there now. So, you know, I think for me, the Norwich and Brentford are the favourites. I mean, I think the way Brentford are playing, I think they could well go top quite soon, and they really are on a roll, aren't they? And I think they're probably the outright favourites, and then I'd say it's Norwich. But you know, I think not being the favourites sort of suits us. I mean, there's not a great deal of pressure on us, so that hopefully is going to suit us. I mean, there's a long way to go, isn't there? I think it's a good thing that we've played Brentford and Norwich twice now. That gets that out of the way.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've still got to play a few of the other sides around us, but yeah, I would say we're not the favourites, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. But either way, you'd have to say we are realistically now in with a good chance, and it's starting to get to the point, I think, where if we don't get top 2, we are going to be a little bit disappointed.
Matt, would you agree with that? Would finishing 3rd represent a disappointment by this stage?
I know he shares a lot of the. He shares his initials and his first name with Steve Cooper, but Steve Carroll is sounding a lot like him there, downplaying the Swans' chances by saying we're not favourites for the top 2. We do have a game in hand on Norwich, and that would put us above them. And I think if the games in hand were played and that's Brentford won them, it would be 57 to Brentford, 56 to us, and 55 to Norwich, which will put them in the 3rd place. So I think you've got to consider us real contenders for the top 2. Our form is, like, as you mentioned a couple of times in recent podcasts, Guto, is very similar to Brentford's in a points tally over the last 10 games or so. So it's really positive from us. Our strength in depth now is what fills me with confidence. And I know you can always fall flat on your face saying this, but I talked about Jordan Morris. I talked about him being a ready-made option off the bench. We spoke about Kyle Norton playing so well against Norwich, but then if it's not Norton, or if you pick up a knock, you've got Ben Cabango, or you've got Joel Latibeaudiere, 2 starters, as far as I'm concerned. The 2 players who could start and you wouldn't blink an eye. You know, Areola has just come in. Who knows where he's going to play? He was a defender, then he was a winger, now he's a forward. So, you know, it's another player who's come in to add strength and depth there. We signed a couple of other players as well, Whittaker. We've got options for the future as well. But it's the fact that when you've got the grueling fixture list, you're just worried about what if our players pick up a knock? What if they just dip off form? And it's about making sure you have people that can come in and stake a claim for a starting position. And there are players on the bench now. We know we've got the strength in midfield. There's players who just haven't had game time because we've got the strength there. And now we've filled in the gaps around the pitch as well. We're very much in with a shout. For me, as it stands today, it's Swansea and Brentford who are favourites to the top 2, and Norwich, who've looked a little shaky without Buendia, perhaps shown their hand a little bit in the fact that if you can keep Buendia quiet or off the pitch, I know it's easier said than done, but if you can keep him quiet, then clearly they're not the threat that they are with him firing all cylinders. So there's something to target there for future opposition, not as clear cut from a Brentford and Swansea perspective. So I'm absolutely throwing us in that top 2 hunt. And I look below, by the way, just before I hand back, I look below Reading, Watford, Bournemouth. Those are the 3 others filling the playoff spots. None of them are as good as us.
Well, Steve, who can we count in this promotion race and out now? Because it's time now to start saying, yeah, they're not going up. I mean, Reading have played the same amount of games as us and are 3 points behind. Watford are level on points with Reading, but they've played a game more. So both of those teams are 6 points off the off second spot at the moment. And then you've got Bournemouth, who finish off the top 6. They've played a game more than us, and they are 8 points behind us now. I mean, surely we can count Bournemouth out at this stage, can we?
I think Bournemouth will be focusing on the playoffs. I mean, they won't necessarily give up on top 2, but it's going to take a hell of a run now to get back into the race. So, as far as I'm concerned, if Bournemouth were to finish above us, then we know we're not going to get top 2. So we shouldn't be even considering them as a particular danger at this stage, I would say. So, yeah, I think Bournemouth have that bad run has taken them out of the equation, really. And it's 2 teams from 5 going for those automatic spots.
Yeah, and it just goes to show the importance of that win against Norwich, because had that result gone the other way, I mean, the current 2 point gap between us and Norwich would instead, of course, be a 7-8 point gap, something like that. I mean, it would just be absolutely enormous. And, it would be very difficult then to see us bridging that gap with Norwich. And they would have given them, of course, the confidence to keep going. As it is, they've now gone 4 games in all competitions without the win and without scoring a goal. There's a bit of pressure on them, and they've got us breathing down their necks. And this championship promotion race, it's just relentless, but it is so fascinating.
Sorry to jump in just there, just as a final point. It's crucial to remember that when it's all said and done, at the moment, it's currently out of Norwich's hand. If us and Brentford win our remaining games, they don't finish in the top 2.
There is a long way to go before
absolutely.
Talking in those kind of terms.
Norwich are top for a reason.
I mean, everybody's going to be dropping points. Even Brentford, who've gone 19 games unbeaten, they're going to be dropping points before the end of the season. Nobody's going to go the rest of the season unbeaten, let alone win every single game. So there's a heck of a long way to go in the season. But the rate that teams have been dropping points at the top, it's just very difficult to see the chasing pack being able to bridge that gap as far as I'm concerned. And while I wouldn't quite rule out Reading and Watford just yet, Reading I think have been very good recently. Watford have been pretty mediocre, but they've got good players, so can't quite rule them out. It definitely looks a lot more like 2 from 3, like we've been talking. And I'd agree more with Steve, if I'm being honest. I think Brentford and Norwich are the favourites to finish in those top 2 spots probably, and we're still probably outsiders, but only by a tiny amount. And so much we're going to learn so much from Norwich, I think, over the coming games, because they'll have Buendia back. Does that completely solve their creativity issues and get them scoring goals again? Or is there a bit of a deeper malaise in that club at the moment? Is this a bit more than just a blip? And could this turn into a bit of a rut, which could affect their psyche and see them lose a few more points? We'll have to wait and see in that stage. They're still a very good squad with a very good manager, etc. They still lead the table. They're still the ones that we're chasing. But we've definitely made it much, much more interesting with that win on Friday. Moving on now, boys. Before we played against Norwich, we obviously had the closure of the transfer window. Now, when we recorded the podcast, we were kind of considering, let's just kind of look at the transfer window as a whole, because we didn't really think that much was going to happen on the final day. Maybe 1 or 2 signings. It turned out, Matt, to be a much, much more eventful one than we expected, and probably the headline signing was Paul Areola from DC United, who we are led to believe is arriving in Swansea around about now, ready to join his new teammates.
Yeah, he was the big will he won't he, wasn't he, as it came to deadline day. There always seems to be one name touted about that you think. I think last week we talked about it being 50-50, didn't we? We weren't really sure if it was going to happen. Looked like it was definitely happening. Then it was going a bit cold, and So to get that over the line, obviously, was someone we were very keen on, and it's another, he's well thought of, he's well spoken of, and I don't know, I haven't seen him play, so I can't come with any sort of prior knowledge of the man. But when you've got someone you're chasing, it's nicer to get them and see the player that you actually want, because there's your proof is in the pudding then, isn't it? You got the player you wanted, and now you're going to put him in a position where you think he can make a difference. So there's more perhaps, question marks over the other signings we made, because they seem to perhaps be fillers for maybe a future or injury crisis or anything like that, or to fill a bench. But Areola was certainly the headline, I think, for the deadline day, and I'm excited to see where he fits in, because as his compatriots found out, it's not going to be an easy job getting into this Swans team at the moment, and he may have to work his way in there. You could even look at our existing options and the fact that Ryan Manning can't oust Jake Bidwell, even though Ryan Manning's always impressed when he's given a sniff of a first team action. So there's a growing list of people knocking on that door, which can only be good, because it keeps the starting 11 on their toes.
Yeah, absolutely. And one player, Steve, who's been brought in, we're not sure really how much of a part he's going to play this season, is Morgan Whittaker. We actually paid money for Whittaker, which isn't something we do too often. It's around about £700,000, the rumoured price tag. He's worked with Steve Cooper before for the England youth teams. Do you think the former Derby striker has been brought in to play a part this season, or is he being brought in to look longer term?
Well, I think it's for longer term, but that doesn't mean that he won't play at all this season. I mean, I think he is only going to play, though, in the remainder of this season from the bench, or if we get, an injury crisis, suspensions or anything like that, really. So it's definitely one with an eye on the future. I mean, Cooper's got Lowe and AU, who he seems to who've been first choice really from the start of the season, and I think Morris was brought in to bring real competition to them. But I think Whittaker undoubtedly is one for the future, and we won't see a great deal of him this season, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah, you'd imagine that with Morris, and even Areola was described on the official Twitter feed as a forward when he signed. Not sure about that, but we have got options up front. One player, Matt, who's surely only been brought in to kind of add depth in case there is an injury crisis is Kieran Freeman, one cap Welsh international, former Sheffield United player. Recently signed with Swindon Town, made only 2 league appearances for them before the Swans bizarrely came in and snapped him up. I mean, this was an unexpected one, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, there were a couple of 11th hour ones which kind of left you scratching your heads a bit. Kieran Freeman was obviously brought in, having only just joined Swindon on a short-term deal, and he's joined us on a short-term deal, so he's ground hopping a bit at the moment. But if he can fill a gap and play a part for us, and even just to make sure that we've got the cover that we need until the end of the season, and if he impresses and earns himself a longer contract in the meantime, then good. The deal to send Garrick as part of it to Swindon on loan, on the face of it, looks a good deal, in the sense that we've long been saying Garrick needs game time. He's just going to stagnate. He needs to be playing 25 plus games a season. He needs to be in the thick of it. He needs to be in a promotion battle, a relegation battle. He needs to feel all those emotions of playing every week for the senior team. And see if he can make the cut. Makes sense until you consider the fact that his contract expires at the end of the season, which then means he's basically just, is he joining Swindon on a free transfer? I don't know if in the meantime he's looking to sign a new deal, or if he has signed a new deal. I haven't read it. But yes, it was one of those ones that looks a bit iffy on the face of it. Maybe there's something more going on behind the scenes. Let's hope we haven't dropped a bollock here and sent a player with a few months left on his contract to play for someone else to see out his contract. And Otherwise, we'll be looking a bit silly. And of course, to add to the confusion about Garrick going is the fact that we've brought Joe Lasoro back. I know which one I'd rather of the two, but I get that Garrick needs game time, as I've just said. But you either need Garrick or you don't need Garrick. And Joe Lasoro coming back, what's that for? Is he going to have a sniff at first team football now?
No, it's basically because he wasn't doing anything at Genoa, and they didn't really want him around the place. I mean, Steve Cooper said that he's not part of the first team plans, which is about as blunt as you can get, really, with one of your own players. So, you know, well, Joe Lasoro definitely hasn't been brought in to do Jordan Garrick's job. Then that's quite obvious. I mean, Steve, you know, we've spoken before in kind of excited terms about Jordan Garrick. He's a player that we've all had high hopes for. He's had his injury problems. He's had drops. You know, his form has not always been there. But I don't know. This is the kind of player that I don't really want to lose for nothing either. I think he's the kind of player that I'd like to see us keep around in the hope that he will develop into the player that we thought he might do.
Yeah, I mean, I quite like Garrick. I've said that quite a lot, I think, on this podcast. I think there is something about him, but I think he's been unlucky that we've decided, obviously, to play with a formation without wide players, and he's not really had much of a look in them because of it. And obviously, we've been doing well, so it's been tough for him. And I think he really does need first-team football, so hopefully he'll get it at Swindon. I think he did play in their game yesterday, so yeah, let's see what happens there, really. But like you say, I wouldn't want to lose him for nothing. I think it would have been great if we could have got him on a year's extension at least and then sent him out on loan. But, you know, I suppose there is the danger now. If he was to do very well, then there could be a few clubs interested in taking him, and obviously he'll decide possibly to move on. But, yeah, I think he definitely needed a loan spell for his own development because he wasn't going to play here. So let's hope it works out.
Yeah, and hopefully we don't lose him at the end of the season, because I think we're all quite big fans of Garrick. We'd all like to see him develop at the club, and but like we've all said, I guess hopefully the loan deal at Swindon will do him a world of good and improve him as a player. I mean, speaking of kind of the off-field activities of transfers, one surprise this week was a very rare interview from some of the people who run the club. Jason Levian and Jake Silverstein, who is a new director since the summer at the club, spoke to a small group of journalists in what has become a very rare interview from the owners. Steve, I'll start with you here because you've been very vocal about the owners in the past. Did we learn anything new from this interview, do you think?
Nothing huge, I don't think. This interview should have been done when Silverstein came on board. Why it's taken this long, I don't know. And even now, they've not really told us a great deal about him. Suppose the interesting things from it were stuff like if we were to go up, that they weren't interested in selling. Obviously, that could be wrong. I mean, if they were to get offered a good price, but that wasn't something that I was over the moon about, if I'm honest with you. They said a lot of stuff that they can't really back up. So as far as I'm concerned, the proof will be in the pudding. I don't really trust them as far as I can throw them. We're doing well in spite of their clueless activities previously. And the reason we're doing better is because they've been keeping their noses out. So long may that continue, really. But I've not changed my mind on them. Ideally, I'd like them out and I'd like better owners. But obviously, that's easier said than done.
Matt, obviously the timing was no coincidence. They're doing it at a time when the Swans are doing very well on the pitch and things are looking better off the pitch. I guess moving on from what Steve said there, how much of that is actually down to the owners and how much credit can we give to them?
Look, I'm never going to use the two in the same bracket, but it's not something it's particularly both from the blue. I mean, Hugh Jenkins used to do it a lot when we were riding high and doing well and climbing through the divisions. He couldn't keep his beak out of the press. He was there all the time. He was always doing interviews and he was chatting to everyone. Then the downfall started and you couldn't find him. He'd gone into hiding. So yeah, it's not. It's certainly not something that's completely rare to see people jump on the bandwagon and like to lap up the plaudits when things are going well. That's human nature, I think. I am fully with Steve. I mean, you don't trust them, you want to change them, but not because of how it is now, but because the damage for me was irreparable from before. The fact that the whole trust sale and the share sale and not talking to the trust or hiding things and not and still even after the initial takeover, there was still damaging components of the relationship, which the trust are coming forward saying they still haven't responded to this, they still haven't given us that, they haven't spoken to us about this since this date. The legal action seems to be continuing in the background, and it looks like that inevitably is going to be how it all plays out in the end. But as far as if you took, which you can't, it is irreparable. If you took those years away and took the last 12 months on its own, you'd have to say we've sold our better players, but we've reinvested and made the squad better as a result. They have backed Cooper. They have allowed him to bring in players. Yes, you said we spent money on Whittaker. We spent money on Jamal Lowe in the summer. We've managed to tie down a few players on contracts who were coming up to the end of them, who have performed this season, and look at the players we've got in. I know we've got a lot of loan signings in, but they've sanctioned the moves of these players who are who are propelling us up to the top end of this division, which ultimately is where we all want to be. So if you take the last year, the season alone at face value, you have to say that they deserve their part in credit, just on the basis that they've appointed chairman, as you said at the start, or whether it was a pre-recording, or they've appointed the chairman who are doing the business and have kept their faces out of it now because they know nothing about the sport. Maybe that's true.
It's a bit of a weird way to compliment them, isn't it? Saying like, oh yeah, they've done the right thing by appointing other people to do their job better than the way they would.
It's acknowledgement, isn't it? I think it's acknowledging that they don't know and they realise, hang on, yeah, okay, I'm no longer confident that I know what I'm doing, so I'm just going to make sure.
The best thing you can say about them is, I guess, that they've delegated well over the last year or two, basically, and the appointments they've made as chairman have taken a lot of the stress off of them because they've got people who actually understand football and have a better understanding of how to run a championship football club is now making the big decisions which define the club's future.
And they're allowing the people to make those decisions who they know will safe pair of hands. The committee who was appointing, or rather interviewing new managers. No, it wasn't Kaplan and Levy and sitting around the table, talking about soccer with potential candidates. It was Leon Britton. It was players who and people who knew what this club meant and what we needed to be doing and which direction we need to be heading. And you couldn't just appoint any old manager. This wasn't a, give it to Big Sam and he'll get you through the division kind of job. This was we play a certain way and we need to have possession-based football. So it was, like you say, it's about the art of delegation and making sure that they're not just throwing money at bad things because they're focusing on the wrong areas. At least they're saying, right, we've got this sum of money, do best with it what you can. And it looks like we're doing that.
And Steve, I was looking at kind of social media and stuff and seeing what the reaction was to this interview. And I guess it's one of the biggest things that struck me about this, because I don't think there was much really garnered from the interview, really. I mean, like you said, they discussed saying that they were here for the long term and they wouldn't just sell when they got the Premier League. I mean, we'll wait and see on that one. We'll, if a big offer comes in that gives them a way out the club, I'm sure they'd consider it at the very least. And one or two other minor issues, but there wasn't too much new bombshell stuff there to discuss. But I just looked at the response online, and I guess the response was much more muted than what we've traditionally seen when they have made any kind of comment in the media. I wrote a column in the Evening Post this week saying basically that they're never going to be the most popular people. There's still a massive amount of distrust there. They've still got a heck of a long way to go to get fans on side. But do you think we've reached a point now where fans are a bit more tolerant of their presence at the very least?
Yeah, probably. I mean, if we're being honest, how can I put this? When the club are doing well, then these things tend to fade into the background a little bit more because a lot of fans are only interested in what goes on the pitch. And obviously that I can understand that as well. So yeah, I think they're sort of getting away with it at the moment. I think if we look at someone like Hull, for example, who have been shocking the last few years, and it is down to the owner. Obviously, there's been a lot of apathy there, and people not turning up. And when they were protesting. They've sort of got away with that one down here because we are winning. So that's probably why, there was a more muted response. I mean, if we were in the bottom half of the table and all this kind of thing, I think the reaction would be different. So, yeah, they're getting away with it. That's probably the way of looking at it, and that's the reason why there was a muted response.
Would you want to hear more interviews from them on a more regular basis, or should we be glad that we don't actually hear much from the other side of the pond these days?
I think as soon as the transfer window, August 2018, when we sold 4 players and they gave us the biggest load of drivel statement as an explanation, I think I was at the point then when, unless they were going to say the golden phrase, "we've sold up," I didn't really want to hear from them ever again, because I just thought, you are talking shit. It's just completely irrelevant what you say anymore because we just don't trust you. It's completely gone. And what's the point in wasting our time, basically? They should be speaking a lot more and giving a lot more substance, but just not going to do it, really. So I'd rather they just, obviously I'd rather they left. But at the same time, I'd rather they just kept their nose out. It's as simple as that.
It's a bizarre phenomenon, isn't it? I mean, why do we need to hear from chairman at all? What's the manager should be having a fair say in the transfer targets, who he wants and stuff. The game is controlled by the manager, and your players you want to hear from because they're involved in the game. Your chairman, he's your businessman. He's the boring numbers in the background guy. He's the one who's trying to get contracts signed.
But that stuff matters, doesn't it? That stuff matters.
It matters
the future of the club, etc. You want to know that the club is heading in the right direction off the pitch as well as on the pitch. The two things are not always, they don't live in isolation. They are linked, and obviously, this club has a history of fans holding owners to account as well when they do not run things properly. So in that sense, surely it is important that we do here, have a decent idea then of what is going on behind the scenes and why decisions are being made that way.
But then I think it's something that, down onto a footballing level, how is it going to affect the match day experience? Anything that happens there can come from the manager. If he says, at the end of the day, we're running on a tight budget, we've got to sell a couple of players. I mean, those are things that sometimes you hear managers say in conferences anyway, that they'll give an insight to that. And I feel like this chairman, obviously this football oversaturation of football, isn't it? In the Sky Sports era, and we've got everything. We want to hear from every facet of every club. But for me personally, I mean, chairmen talk a lot of guff anyway. I only want to really hear from them when they, if they've decided to part ways with a manager, or they've decided on who they're appointing as manager. Apart from that, I mean, how much are they going to be prepared to put out in the public domain anyway? Are they going to say, we're actually running massively in the red, so we need to sell everyone on the cheap? Because that's really bad business acumen. So I think you've got to take what they say with a pinch of salt if you're looking for how the state of the club is on and off the pitch, because they'll put out a picture that they want the public to hear.
Yeah, that's very true, isn't it? I guess the big news from those interviews is we tend to agree there wasn't that much news, but always. I guess always a conversation starter whenever the owners do actually make any kind of public comment. Moving back onto the pitch, where we want to keep our focus really, because we've just played the top team in the Championship. now we're getting ready to play the top team in the Premier League, Man City, coming back to the Liberty 2 years after that controversial FA Cup fixture, which we'll get on to discuss in a bit. Steve, I'll start with you with this one. We are getting ready to play against a team that has won 14 games in a row in all competitions and has just beaten Liverpool 4-1 at Anfield. Should we be scared?
Don't know about scared, but concerned, probably, yes. We've seen a few of these runs in recent years from Man City, haven't we, where, they go on, they basically seem to beat everybody in their path, and obviously they dish out hide-ins as well. It's not usually 1 and 2-0, is it? I remember a few. I think they beat Chelsea 6-0 in one game as their heaviest defeat in about 30 years. So, yeah, it's I know you said earlier about it was a good time to play Norwich. I think this is a bad time to play Manchester City, but at the same time, they probably are going to make changes. I mean, there'll be a lot of players today that were playing that probably will not play on Wednesday night. Obviously, the squad that they've got, there will still be a very strong side out there. But it's going to be a tough game. We've got nothing to lose as far as I'm concerned. I think we should play more or less our strongest 11, maybe make the odd change with the likes of, I'd give Morris a game, for example, if Smith is fit, get him back in, get some minutes. Cabango I'd bring back in, I'd probably play Manning, but the rest I'd probably play a full side, because the fact is, if we don't play a full side, then we are running the risk of a hiding, and we don't want that either. So, yeah, we need to take it seriously because of the quality of the opposition, really. But I think we're very unlikely to get through. But at the same time, I think we've got bigger fish to fry. This isn't really a year for the cup. I mean, can you imagine we got to the final or we won it, and which is very unlikely anyway. But then we couldn't even go. It would be one of the greatest moments in our history, and obviously we wouldn't get to see it, so it'd be hollow. So, yeah, for me, this is a good time to sort of bow out of it, but hopefully we'll give a good account of ourselves. But ultimately, City will go through. I think would probably be the best for us.
Well, Matt, if City, are bound to go through, what's the point of us playing our most, our best players and knackering them ahead of, a long trip up to Sheffield on Saturday?
I'm not feeling as negatively about the game, if I'm honest. I think I don't say Steve's talking negative. That's unfair. I think I'm looking at it a little bit more with an optimistic eye. Then put it that way, because I feel like we're bouncing. Obviously, we've just won a top of the table clash ourselves. It promises to be a very, very good game, because I mean, we're very difficult to score against. Now, Man City are a completely different proposition to anything we faced in the Championship this season, good or bad. But you have to weigh into that as well, that they will undoubtedly make changes. They are now, after today's result against Liverpool, sniffing return to the title for them. It's clearly in their hands there. They don't want to do anything silly that could bring the likes of Liverpool, Leicester, and the others into a race again, to make them think that Man City is slipping up. So I do feel like they go into play a weakened team. I think there'll be 6 or 7 changes from the team that's played against Liverpool today. But again, they'll leave some big hitters on the bench if it isn't going their way. And I agree with Steve in the sense that 2 or 3 changes aside, we should go for it. There's nothing. It's 11v11 at the end of the day. They have a vast squad that could, they could walk. Their second team could walk into most first teams. But at the end of the day, every game starts 0-0, and we've got to go into it thinking that we can get something out of it. Otherwise, like you say, what's the point? So I would look at this as an opportunity, particularly as and I'm wary of the focus being taken off the league. I don't want that, because obviously that's our main focus. But winning breeds confidence, and there's no such thing as a bad victory in football. So you've got to have confidence going into each game. Now, taking a hiding against Man City will do nothing for our confidence, or necessarily you've got this big black mark in the middle of this great run we're on, which may knock the players who at the moment are trying things and making things happen, because they're brimming. So go for it and run them as close as we can. If we can get as close to them as we did 2 years ago, where we should have won the game 2-1, as we know, then it'll be a proud day again. We can say that we can hold our own against looks like could be the Premier League champions this year is a proud thing. And as I said earlier on, there's plenty of players. We're not going to be, even if we make a few changes, there's players who arguably fight for that first team spot. They're not a second string team, We've got players who will be, if they do come in, will be looking to stay in that starting 11. So they've got a point to prove.
And any players that come in for Man City will probably have the same kind of opinion. They'll want to be playing in the Premier League and Champions League games too. So, a goal against Swansea won't harm their chances. Although, Pep Guardiola, in fairness to him, he does tend to take the cups quite seriously. I'm just looking back to the third round tie against Birmingham, so a team from the same league as us. Their starting 11 included João Cancelo, Kyle Walker, Ruben Dias, Mendy on the left back, Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, Gabriel Jesus, Phil Foden, and Riyad Mahrez all started that game. And then you had the likes of John Stones, Fernandinho coming off the bench, So I don't think we're going to see the reserves come in for Manchester City. Steve, which players, if any, would you like to see play who have not played much already? I know you've named a couple already, but who do you think would you like to see, and how much do you expect? How seriously then do you expect Steve Cooper to take this game?
I think he will take it pretty seriously. I do think there'll only be a couple of changes. He'd be thinking it as a chance to show how good we are and how good he is as a coach, really, because it'll be his. Obviously, we haven't come up against a Prem side really yet during his time here, so I think he'll be relishing this opportunity. So, as I've said, I think the likes of Morris and Manning and Smith, I think they are the changes I would make, but we can't afford really to go too easy, because I would fear a hammering if he was to make too many changes. So, yeah, I think for Morris especially, I think it's important he gets a start, because you might struggle to get one in the league, and it gives us a chance then maybe to rest someone like AU, who's played more or less every minute. So let's certainly give him a chance, and he might be an unknown quantity and give City more problems, because they're unlikely to know much about it.
I'd like to see us play a stronger team as possible. Maybe one or two changes, like you said, but I'd like to see us really test this team against one of the best teams in the world. There's no shame if we lose, but it would be great for some players who have not had the chance to play against teams of that standard. I'm thinking of players like Mark Gay, Freddie Woodman, Ben Cabango, Jamal Lowe. They've had very little experience of playing competitive football against players of that standard, so it would be good for those players and others, obviously, to really test themselves against one of the best teams in the world right now. Let's face it. Matt, I'll come back to you. You mentioned it earlier, that FA Cup game. It's one of the most painful defeats or rather the most long-lasting pains that I have felt after a defeat as a Swans fan, which is strange, but I just think back 2 years ago, we were 2-0 up against the runaway Premier League leaders, are quite possibly the best team in the world at that stage, in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, and just two big refereeing decisions went against us and cost us big time. I still think, I don't know about you, but I still think back to that match and think, what if we had just had some, a VAR there, or had, just a referee which saw those incidents for what they were, etc. Do you still have that kind of regret, or am I kind of just living in the past and can't move on?
Yeah, I think I know Steve in particular is very, very passionate about this one as well. I do obviously feel like that was vintage Swans as well, wasn't it? That's what's most frustrating, is that we were not just beating them, but we were playing some delightful football. We were really, really taking it to them. And the second goal, the Selena goal, is just a piece of art. You just want to replay it over and over again from the back to the front. You had Dan James involved as well. I think it was Dyer involved, and when it gets to Selena and he curls it top corner as well, you're just thinking, this is it. This is perfect. This is like, you're looking at playoff final kind of stories where you just remember it over and over and over again, and you can still play that goal back in your head. So it doesn't mean, it was talked about a little afterwards. It was the controversy of not having VAR at the stadium. A couple of months earlier, we were a Premier League ground. We were very well equipped for it, and they didn't give it to us. And I think we were the only tie not to have it at that stage of the competition, which, in fairness to Pep Guardiola, after the game, he was very apologetic. He knows that it shouldn't have been a penalty. He knows that it was an offside. What can you say? I mean, it was the referee. Sometimes they bow down to the bigger teams. We saw that in the Premier League when we were in there. In that, the smaller teams never get the rub of the green, and that's kind of why I was excited about VAR coming in, because you don't get that big team bias anymore. It hasn't obviously worked out as I'd hoped, but but no, when you think back to that game, you just think, how well we played and how gutting it must have been on the pitch at the time to not really know, did Carter Vickers get the ball, or did he bring down Sterling, or was Aguero onside? Was he level? But to look at it back and go, if the officials had done their job and got the decisions right, well, who knows really, because Man City would have had to keep coming and keep coming. Who knows what would have happened? But certainly those 2 goals would have been chalked off. So there is a lot of what ifs, yeah. I know Steve is going to follow that up with a bit more of a robust response, I'm sure.
And Steve, how much of how much is revenge going to be on the mind of the players going into this match? Because it'll be in the back of a lot of fans' minds, but will the players really think that way? Because in fairness, when you look back at the team, the lot has changed in the last 2 years. Only 3 of the players who were involved that day are in any way likely to take part this time around, and that's Connor Roberts, Matt Grimes, and Jay Fulton. So, but do you think for those 3 players anyway that they'll want to make up for the injustice of 2 years ago?
I'm sure it'll get mentioned. I mean, as you say, there's not that many of them still here, and obviously the manager has changed as well. So yeah, it'll be mentioned, but I don't think it'll be like a huge thing of revenge. Obviously, for us, it's a little bit different because it's a game that stands out, really, isn't it? As probably one of the biggest ones of injustice in our time following the club, really. And obviously, the stakes were pretty high. It's hard not to look back, isn't it, and think, God, we could have knocked them out, obviously, on another day, and obviously we were unlucky not to do so. And obviously Brighton were waiting in the next round, and potentially Watford in the final would have had a genuine chance of winning the cup, and that might never happen again in our lifetime. So, yeah, I am still bitter about it. Would I like to knock them out? Probably like revenge in a different way, as I think this season it wouldn't have the full effect, really. But yeah, it is a defeat that plays on my mind. It's definitely one of probably the top 3 games with the Swans that I would like to change the result. So that probably says a lot after 25 years.
What are the other 2?
For any defeat against Cardiff will spring to mind. Napoli away, I would like to change the result, because I think that's another one where I don't think we were robbed, but I think we were very unlucky not to get through.
Yeah.
We were going through with about 10 minutes left in that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Boney missed the chance as well, didn't he?
Yeah. So that's one I always look at and think, God, we might never play in Europe again, and we were so close to getting through. So yeah, that's probably the one I would change more than Man City, but then it probably is the Man City one.
I do the Man City one. When you think we were a championship team playing against the best team in the world, quite possibly at that stage, or if not the best, then definitely one of the top 3 teams in the world that season. And we were leading 2-0, and with a chance to go to a semi-final. And when you look at the other teams that were involved in the FA Cup that season, the likes of Wolves, Watford, I think Southampton may have been there. I'm not sure about the last one.
No,
but
it was Wolves and Watford was the semi-final we wouldn't have been involved in, but we would have had Brighton in the semi-final.
Brighton, I mean, that would have been a winnable game against Brighton.
Yeah, Brighton were having a shocker at that time as well, remember?
They really were.
Chris Hughton, obviously, like I said, I'm not sure, they barely won a game, did they, towards the end of the season? They had a few draws, and obviously they didn't go down. Hughton got sacked, and obviously that's when Potter went in there, but they were badly off form. I think we'd have had a genuinely good chance of beating them.
And I've always said, like, if it's the one thing that I have not seen from my club, the one experience then that I've not been given by my club, which I really, really love to before I died, is to see them play in the FA Cup final. I'd love to just stand there with, like, abide with me before kickoff, etc. The whole pomp of the occasion. That would be like the last thing ticked off the list, because like everything else, I've seen them play in Europe, I've seen them play in the Premier League. But to see them in an FA Cup final would be like an incredible. That's the biggest ask. I understand that out of everything on that list. Not many clubs make it to an FA Cup final these days. But I mean, But that's what makes it even more gutting, really, because for a club of Swansea's size, we don't get that many opportunities to go to an FA Cup final. In fairness, only one team from the second tier in my memory has made it there, and unfortunately it was Cardiff, but fair play to them. They did.
Millwall in 2004.
Millwall did as well. I'm sorry. Yes, I should have remembered Millwall losing to United, but it doesn't happen very often. But there was a genuinely realistic chance of us making it if we got past Manchester City, and if we had beaten Man City in the quarterfinals, the boost that would have given us, you definitely wouldn't have bet against the Swans making it to that FA Cup final. And it is just one of those things. I'm not sure if the players will have it on their minds, but fans will definitely remember the pain of that day and the frustration of not making it through. But there we go. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, in terms of predictions, boys, Matt, you go first. But we've
oh God,
our record against Man City is not particularly good. I'll warn you. In our last 14 games, we've lost 12 and drawn 2, which is pretty dire. We've only beaten them once in the whole time that we were in the Premier League. That was, of course, the first time we played them at home, Luke Moore, and that unforgettable day. I mean, do you think we have any chance of beating that? Before we get to predictions, do you think there is any hope of Swansea knocking Man City out of the cup on Wednesday?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Because under Graham Potter, we played some of the best football we'd seen, since Laudrup's pomp and stuff. We were just looking like we were returning to the Swansea City we were. But there were some games that season, despite absolutely dominating and looking like prime Barcelona, we just could not get over the line. I think it was Rotherham away with 2 late penalties or something like that, and we were just getting robbed left, right, and centre. We weren't finishing teams off as much as we were just getting 70+% possession. We were superb, but we weren't savvy, and we were very unlucky. Now this season, you could make a lot of points that look contrasting to Graham Potter's team, in that we're not always that pretty on the eye. We're certainly not playing the sort of free-flowing stuff on a regular basis that we were under him. However, streetwise, I've never seen us so streetwise. And lucky, yeah, you've got to say we get our fair share of luck. And that's what you need in football. You need to know how the game works. You need to know how to be streetwise. You need to know when it's more beneficial to go down under a challenge rather than try and ride it in an awkward angle and take the foul or the penalty or whatever. And I think we were a bit naive under Potter at that time. As scintillating as we were looking back, we didn't get what we should have got out of that season. And now we're not playing as beautiful as we were back then, but we're very, very canny and we're very streetwise. And I think that'll stand us in good stead. And that's why, why we're fighting as high up in the table as we are, because we're able to just do what needs to be done and cut out all the frills around it. that doesn't mean for 1 second I think that we're going to beat Man City. But if you're asking, is there a possibility, which I think was the phrasing of your question, yeah, because we now know how to play football. We now know how to win games rather than just go out and express yourself. You need to know the finer, the darker arts of the football match, and it's something we've worked on clearly because we've reaped the rewards of it this season.
So let's hear your prediction. Are the Swans going to join Leicester and Spurs as the only teams to beat Man City this season?
Oh, I've set myself up here, haven't I? No, I think possibly it'll be close. I don't think it'll be a runaway. It certainly won't be embarrassing. I say that and I touch wood as I say it. But I think it'll be 2-1 to Man City.
Oh, very close one. Steve, I mean, they beat Liverpool 4-1 earlier today as we record, but I mean, Liverpool didn't have any centre-backs on the pitch and their goalkeeper was in a kamikaze kind of mood. I mean, they're going to come up against a very strong defence in the Swans and a goalkeeper who's kept more clean sheets than any other keeper, I think, in all four top divisions. So can we do what Liverpool couldn't?
It's never impossible, is it? But I think it's unlikely, if I'm honest. I think we'll probably lose quite comfortably. I'm going to say 3-0 to Man City.
I'm going to go 2-0 to Man City. I think we will make life difficult for them. I think it'll be a good test for the defence. I'm not sure if we've got... there's just too many things that need to go our way for us to win this one. And it's just asking a heck of a lot against a team that's in such amazing form right now. But I think it's going to be a good test for our team, even though I do think that we're gonna lose it. We'll just quickly look ahead to a much more winnable game, Matt, against Sheffield Wednesday on the weekend. Now, on paper, this is one, we're playing against a team in the bottom three. This is one that you'd expect us to win if you were just looking at league positions. But Wednesday have won 4 of their last 6 games. They're in good form, even though they've just lost 4-1 to Millwall. So, I mean, this isn't going to be an easy one, is it?
No, you scared me with that. Before we started recording, we were chatting about that, and I was looking at the league table and thinking, yeah, you got to win these games. But of course, the caretaker boss has had a good reaction there, and he's looking like he's fighting tooth and nail for to get them out of the bottom 3, which they're not a million miles away from doing now. So it is real. It's a different prospect to one if you just looked at them and saw them one off bottom. So it's, look, you could give out the old cliches that you see all the time. There's no easy games in football, etc. But if we cut out the bullshit, it still is a game you have to win if you want to be taken seriously. I mean, really speaking, Sheffield Wednesday have done decent in the last few weeks, but they have just come off a hiding to a team that haven't been pulling up any trees themselves recently. So, we need to be looking at it and thinking, well, if you go there and win, you keep pressure on Brentford, you keep pressure on Norwich, and you keep in the hunt. You go there and lose, and all of a sudden, you got Reading on your coattails and stuff. It's a relentless division this year. The top 3, we're going to see a high total, I think, because it's going to need to be a high total in that there's no runaway leader who can take their foot off the gas because they've got 6 or 7 points. There's a real threat for all of us that one of us is going to finish the season outside of the top 2, and it's going to happen. So we're going to keep pushing each other, and that's going to mean we're going to keep forcing each other to go the extra mile, to keep picking up points, which is going to, is going to force the issue at the top. So, the pressure's on us. I do think that to keep up the good form and go and beat Sheffield Wednesday.
Steve, Sheffield Wednesday have won their last 4 games at Hillsborough, and we saw earlier on the season that they, can be very difficult to beat. We struggled against them when they came down to the Liberty. But our away form recently, we haven't lost away since that very disappointing no-show against Derby County. And since then, the performances haven't always been brilliant. But we've, won 2-0 away at QPR, won 2-0 away at Barnsley. We won 3-1 away against Rotherham. So, those are games in which you could argue that the 2-goal margin flattered us, but we found a way of winning all three of them relatively comfortably in the end, and they weren't all easy games to play against. Rotherham in particular have been in really good form recently, but we went there and did a professional job. Is that what we should expect this time around against Wednesday?
Well, hopefully. I mean, it's interesting you were talking about a few of those away games there. I think in each of them, really, we've sort of managed to score at the right time, haven't we? You think the Barnsley one was just on half time. I think QPR was the same, and then in the Rotherham game, just as they were getting on top and pushing for an equaliser, we managed to nick a third. So I think we've got a decent chance of winning this. Obviously, that, like I say, Sheffield Wednesday are on quite decent form, but I mean, as long as defensively we turn up, which we have done in the majority of games, I think you're right to point that to that Derby game. Really has been an anomaly where, for whatever reason, we just had a little bit of a shocker, which everyone has from time to time. We should be going up there feeling quite confident, I would think, even though, as you say, Sheffield Wednesday are on a nice little run of form at the moment. So, yeah, hopefully we'll have a good approach again. Whatever happens against Man City won't change anything. And, we'll go there hopefully full of confidence and looking to pick up another 3 points.
It is bizarre the difference that a caretaker manager can make sometimes. I mean, they've had Gary Monk and Tony Pulis earlier on this season. Neither of them really managed to get them going in any kind of discernible way. But Neil Thompson, whose managerial experience only involves stints in charge of York, Scarborough and Boston, has got them winning 4 of their last 6 games, including, beating Bournemouth away, etc. That's just mad for me. I mean, Matt, one of the other things they've done is they've started getting Callum Patterson, former Cardiff player, scoring. Should we be concerned by a former Cardiff player in form coming up against us? And it's the kind of... Callum Patterson's a very Cardiff type of player as well. He's a big, bulky guy up front. He's not pretty to look at on the pitch. It's very rustic, his style of football, but it is effective, and it kind of he's the kind of player that just irritates defenders when he's on form. Should we be concerned by that?
Well, I've just Wikipedia'd him, and it has it down as a footballer, which I'm going to have to make an edit on Wikipedia's page for that. No, he's one of those players which he's probably a nightmare to play against for everything you've just said. And he's not a striker either, is he? What position he plays depends on what the team needs at the time. I think he's played all over the place when he was at Cardiff as well. So he's certainly a utility man, if you like, in that respect. But I don't know if you've seen, by the way, I know you two have, but to the listeners, his goal against Bournemouth, which ultimately got their manager the sack, I should feel.
It's a classic of the genre of goals. It really is.
He's picked out the centre of the goal with absolute unerring accuracy. How it's ended up in the back of the net, it gets me worried for match fixing, because it is that awful that the whole passage of play was assisted by Bournemouth, and Patterson did his best to not score, and still he managed to. And he is that sort of player as well. I don't think he scores easy on the eye goals, but he's the one that just gets in there and just starts, making a nuisance of himself in the box and tries to get a toe on things. So he's a different type of prospect. He's going to come for a war with Gehi and Bennett, and it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out, because you certainly can't give him a sniff, because he thrives on making a nuisance of himself in those areas. Having said that, I think we're well equipped to deal with that sort of player. We do have that kind of, we're not like a fancy Dan kind of bring it down and always play it out from the back kind of defence. We make sure first and foremost that we are resolute, and we make it as difficult for the opposition to score as possible. And if that means just getting rid of it, then we're prepared to do that. So, it's always going to be nerves when you face a former Cardiff player to score against us. We've got a record of former players of our own scoring against us. We don't need former Cardiff players doing it as well. So, but no, he's an odd one, Patterson. I don't really know what to make of him.
He is one of those weird players. Like he's when you look at him, you think you don't look like a footballer. No offense to him. And he can play in a variety of positions, but he plays the same way in every single one of those positions. And it's and when you've seen play up front, you automatically think, well, this isn't going to work. This he's obviously a square peg in a round hole here. But over the years, he's worked out a niche for himself. He was loved at Cardiff. They absolutely adored him there, and seems to be having a bit of an impact at Sheffield Wednesday as well. He's never going to be the most glamorous of footballers. He's never going to, reach any kind of heady heights, but he'll do a job for you in this division, I think. Steve, let's just move on quickly to predictions before we finish the pod. We've only ever won once at Hillsborough in our entire history. Are we going to add to that victory?
I think when I predict wins, everybody should worry because my record obviously isn't good. So for that reason,
3-0 Wednesday.
Pardon?
3-0 Wednesday then.
I wasn't going to go that extreme. To be fair, if we conceded 3 against them, I would not be happy at all because they're not great and defensively we're so good. So it would have to have been an incredible off day. I'm going to go 0-0.
Matt, 0-0 against Sheffield Wednesday. That's the glamour of the championship for you there.
We know Steve's done that because he doesn't want to jinx us. I think if off the pod, he'll probably have a little bit more confidence. But I get what he's saying. He doesn't want to jinx himself by putting us down for a win. I'm sure in his heart of hearts, he thinks that it's something that it is a game that we can and should be looking to win. And so I'm going to, stick my neck out and put a 2-0 Swans win on that.
I'm going to go for... Do you know what? I'm going to go for a repeat of the Liberty match. I just think there's something about Wednesday. They're difficult to play against. They're not in the worst of form recently. And we'll be coming off the back of 2 very difficult games. Obviously, they've been away to Millwall and they've got a big relegation clash against Wickham in midweek. But I can see us being a little bit leggy after playing against Man City, and it may just ask a bit much. So I'll go for a 1-1 draw against Wednesday. Obviously, hoping we can extend our good winning run at the moment, but that's going to be a difficult one, you'd imagine. I can't see it being pretty, quite an attritional one, but. This is the reality of the promotion race. You need to pick up points on a regular basis if you want to keep going at the top. Well, that's brought an end to an absolutely packed podcast, looking back at the Norwich game, looking ahead to Man City and Sheffield Wednesday. Please join us for our next pod after the Wednesday game, when we'll be looking back at both those games that we've discussed. But until then, thank you very much for joining us.